I'm here with Eric Hovind on the set of Creation Today.
Go to the store and get some gas.
Yeah.
Do you have gas?
No. Do you?
Oh, no. But we need to get some.
Could have fooled me.
12 points.
Nope. Too late.
Well, we're off to
The Wizard.
No. That's something else. We're off to the Creation Today studios.
The top secret location in Pensacola, Florida, which is in the United States.
Sure is.
Yes. But the back certainly looks authentic.
It sure does. Look at these things. Well, here we are at the Creation Today studio. Cool.
That's a good looking vehicle right there, huh? Push the button.
WHPR.
We are with Eric Hovind for Creation Today.
What second, please?
So professional.
Thank you very much.
Alright, thank you.
Cool TV studio.
Dude, you're on set. I didn't
Oh.
do that.
I'm on set. That is weird.
Well done.
How did I do that? That's me in the hat with John McKay.
That's not you with the silver hair and beard?
No, that may be one day. Should the Lord tarry. I'll never be that tall, though.
True.
The thing it is that we get no free shipping inside. I know, and no tax. And no tax. Right. So my phone starts getting all these messages from Facebook. People laughing and people
is that
comments.
Eric again did that?
That's all new.
Yeah.
Lock that down.
Lock it.
I guess the whole bedroom and everything's put together pretty well.
You take one bed out and put another bed in.
Oh yeah.
What was that?
Nicer bed.
Okay.
Fair enough.
This
Is
is
that-
the world famous
Yeah.
Adam Taylor
This is there.
from Answers in Genesis.
International ladies man.
I wasn't answering Genesis, but
Well, the
That's-
son of an Answers in Genesis man.
I am the son of an Answers in Genesis man.
That must mean you know
We
something.
won't see this yellow
He's
paper,
an
but
Answers
we
in
got-
Exodus man.
We won't.
Second generation.
Hello, YouTube. I'm here with Eric Hovind on the
What's up, guys?
set of Creation Today. Eric, what is Creation Today?
It is a show where we get to answer your questions on creation, evolution, science, and the Bible. Cover really what's going on in creation and why it matters to you.
And this is a weekly broadcast?
It is. It's a weekly broadcast. You can get it at creationtoday.org. You can podcast it through iTunes and things like that, either video or audio. So it's all available.
You even do live broadcasts and give away free giveaways and prizes?
We do. We give away millions and millions of pennies worth of free stuff all the time. We love doing that.
Hey, you know, it could be.
No, I didn't say
Mine's
you're holding
generally
it.
brighter anyway, isn't it?
No.
Yeah.
No, still upside down.
That's where I
Still
want
upside down.
it. Okay.
Upside down.
Well, then you make it there.
Just
That's where
turn
you
it,
want it?
turn it
And
around.
get it.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. Now you got it.
Nope, no, it's...
Yeah.
It's got to be upside down.
It's not straight inside.
That's
Straight in. How do I get out of this job?
Look at the magic behind the
He's
scenes.
slacking, so.
You're not referring to me, are you?
Not at all.
Well, you want to go right here? Just stick that right there, and then you can just grab this seat. Yeah, right there. You go. Yeah, that's it.
Morning workout.
There we go. Now, if that's your shot, Can you just look down for a moment for me?
Yeah, not my best hairdo.
Well, store it.
There, you're right there. There you go. There's your shot. And you can zoom out just a little
Wave to
bit.
all the Canadians over there.
Zoom out just a
Wave
little
to the
bit.
Canadians.
Technically, I'm not Canadian.
What are you?
I was born in New Jersey, so I am an American citizen. I actually don't have Canadian citizenship.
Well, that's no great
He's a
disadvantage. But we wouldn't let you into Australia.
he's a draft dodger.
Aha. From Vietnam.
Hey, Steve. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. From the CTN studio in Pensacola, Florida, this is Creation Today, where we believe the Bible is literally true and scientifically accurate, and we're not ashamed to say so. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Hoven.
And I'm Paul Taylor, and we're here each episode to answer your questions on the Bible and on science and cover what's going on in creation today. And for the second episode running, we're privileged to be joined by John Mackay, the International Director of Creation Research.
How are you folks?
Looking forward to learning more about the research you're doing down there and the things that we're discovering. It is absolutely amazing. You guys enjoy the show. Well, we're excited to have you. I want to get right into some of the research that you're doing. And Paul, I know you and John have known each other for a number of years. Is that right?
A very, very long time. Yeah, back a couple of centuries or so, yeah.
As well. Well, remember for us, if you would, the question that you're most often asked. What is it that you get asked about a lot?
Well, the funniest version of the commonest questions, I was running a youth meeting, and my wife, who doesn't normally come to youth meetings, but she was sitting there, and a young man put his hand up, teenager, and said, "What's the oldest fossil you've ever dated?" I will guarantee
I can see where this is
my
going.
wife can read my mind, because the look from her face was, "If you dare say that." So I tried to answer it scientifically.
No, good. That was probably a wise thing to do. Why is the Earth not millions of years old?
Okay, we'll come from two different directions. You see
Okay.
this grey hair? I've been on planet Earth a few more years than you have.
3 at least.
At least 3, that's right. But what it tells me is that all the theories about how old the world was that I learnt doing a geology degree in Queensland University, I'm old enough to know that they've all gone by the board.
Wow.
Right? And they've now got new theories, and the new theories still disagree with the Bible, even though they disagree with the old theories. Right? So there's lesson number 1.
Well, you know, we were talking before the break about what atheists say on the subject of dating fossils. You were talking about this particular fossil that had aged so many years in such a short period of time, and it just shows how unfixed their ideas are on dating. They basically make it up as they go along so often, it seems to me. Our good friend Mike Gribble actually said about looking at scientific articles and saying you've got to spot the fuzzy words. And this is something even a non-scientist can do. And quite often you see an article where you'll get the phrase, "This has rewritten our whole knowledge about the evolution of whatever." And as soon as you see that, you know that they're basically making it up. They don't know. They've just got something new. It doesn't fit. And so they're basically trying to put some duct tape over the theory of evolution to patch it up. And
Well, when you think about it, truth does not change. So the fact that they keep changing their theory means that they haven't had truth. I mean, in order for something to be proven, it has to be true. Is that correct?
And do you know what? One step further they've gone is to deny that truth exists.
That's true.
Right, and so they've defined truth as inoperable, unusable, unmanageable. It doesn't exist. Right?
I love it when they say, "We can't know the truth." And I say, "Do you know that? Or is that true?"
there are no absolutes.
Yeah, are you absolutely sure? I love that.
Somewhere, and sure enough, halfway up there was the layer with shells and plants in.
Wow.
So this layer actually covers more than 180 degrees of the Earth's surface. So anybody's looking for evidence not only of the creation of the shells and the plants, but the evidence of God's judgment at Noah's flood.
Wow.
You can actually see it, folks. It's really out there and it's rock solid.
And that really is the point, is this shows anybody with half a brain that there really was a worldwide flood. There was a judgment. So why is it that people don't believe this?
Well, I hate to say this, but in all of my experience in dealing with atheists, agnostics and skeptics, it usually turns out to be that they don't want to know. I say that because I was asked to give a lecture to the Geological Association in Oxford, and that's not Oxford, Mississippi, it's the real one, right? And at the end of the program, there was one professor who really, I mean, he really got up my goat. Do you have that phrase over here?
We got goats over here, but...
But anyway, he was so objectionable to anything I said But afterwards he said, would you have a drink in the bar with me? So while he's sipping his whiskey and soda, I'm drinking my Coke and ice and whatever. And he said, you're a very brave man. I said, why? He said, well, I've come across all of that evidence of the different races knowing tribal legends about a flood, but I said, well, why didn't you say so? And the fact is, he knew it, but he would publicly deny it.
Wow.
And so it's one more evidence that your Bible is true, because Peter warns us in the last days in 2 Peter in chapter 3 that in the last days men will deliberately deny.
Yeah.
And that's my experience. They don't want to know, even though they do know.
Wow. Well, I've been fascinated with your website, and you've got a new website where you're answering questions a whole lot and getting overrun with them, right?
That's really the truth, yes. So we originally set up creationresearch.net, and that's our main website still, so you can read all about these DVDs and get free previews there. And free's a good price in the
I like
current
free.
American
Free
economy,
is
isn't it?
always
Yes.
good.
And then you can go to our question and answer website, which is askjohnmackay.com. You got that, Eric?
AskJohnMackay.com.
Don't you love the way he says that?
I was gonna
Ask.
say, yeah.
Yes, that's a great answer.
And it's John Mackay, not McKay.
Yeah, Mackay is Irish, and that's the wrong side of the family.
Ooh, okay, we won't bring that up. This particular one, Darwin's Evolution, you guys are in Australia, is that correct?
Yep, a very unnatural selection, and basically we looked at all the Aussie evidence, you know, those fascinating marsupials we have, and the fact that many of them are giants.
Wow.
And the evidence really shows good to bad to worst to Pensacola.
Hey, watch it now.
Sorry,
Watch it now.
sorry, but it's a degeneration from perfection rather than evolution from nothing to magnificent, right? So the real history
de-evolving.
is we're devolving, right? And so that's what we did, filmed it mostly in Australia and then looked at the same evidence all around the globe. And it's there. Darwin's evolution is an absolutely unnatural use of a very interesting phenomenon called
That
natural
is
selection.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if they can get it, where could they get this?
Well, they can go to creationresearch.net and click on our web shop, and they can also then hunt down through the USA and order it here.
Excellent. And I know we're carrying some of your DVDs as well.
We'll be carrying more, I hope soon.
We're going to, hey, Paul, looks like we need to get another one, all right? All over the world. It's not just in America that this creation versus evolution war or battle is taking place. It's happening around the world.
There's no doubt about it. It really is happening around the world. You see, Charles Darwin at least was objective enough to realise that the fossils, quote unquote, were no help to his theory. They were the weakest part. Read his chapter on geology, where he basically told us most assuredly they do not show vast changes, you know, simple, slow changes over millions of years. And he came up with a concept called living fossil. Living as in you and me, right? As in rose bushes, as in Wollemi pine. You got that?
Yeah.
And living fossil, F-O-S-S means whole, I-L refers to what's in it. So when you dig up stuff out of the rocks, you can find fossil Wollemis. And they look pretty much the same as the living ones. We mentioned the Wollemi because it's the latest and most spectacular one. They thought it had been extinct for over 100 million years, and then they found a small grove of them growing sort of northwest of Sydney, and so it's become famous worldwide. And what's important about it is, well, I remember watching, you remember David Attenborough?
I remember David Attenborough.
He planted one in Kew Gardens, which is basically the most prestigious scientific gardens on the planet. And David Attenborough is an atheist, evolutionist.
Yeah. Sir David Attenborough.
Sorry, yes. Sir David Attenborough. And he planted a Wollemi pine in the gardens there and basically said, isn't evolution marvellous? This plant has remained unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. And you thought, lift up your foot, David, and shoot a hole through it, because you better get it out of your mouth before you do it. You're in trouble here, right? In other words, the evidence, despite the way they put an evolutionary twist on it, the living fossil shows they have produced after their own kind. It hasn't changed.
Hasn't changed a bit.
Yeah, it hasn't changed a bit.
And of course, one of the things that fascinates me about the Wollemi pine is that by evolutionary dating methods, they said it's about 100 million years ago. That puts it into the age of the dinosaurs. And
That's
even
correct.
one evolutionist has said that basically finding it was like finding a real live dinosaur.
It basically did, and the point you can make, folks, out of any of these millions of years is if Wollemi pine hasn't changed in 100 million years, it may as well give up trying to evolve. It's not doing it very good. And so you have to ask another question, what's stopping it evolving? And the reality is, the biologist who gets into the DNA now knows why they don't evolve. Your
Because
DNA
it's so
is actually...
highly evolved already. And it's got everything it needs to
Would you
adapt to the
stop with that
environment over
nonsense?
millions of years.
Because what we've really discovered is they have readers to match what they should be. The DNA, if it gets altered, there's actually little repairers to switch it back to what it should be. So they're designed to produce their own kind, to remind us that God's nature is stamped in the creation, and He never changes.
Wow. How do they actually date these things? Because I know that they came up with the ages of the layers back in the 1800s. Radiocarbon dating is what we most of the time hear, oh, well, you know, radiocarbon dating proves, but that wasn't invented until, what, the 50s?
You get 1947, you get carbon-14, you get the 1950s, the finalisation of the uranium, rubidium...
Paul remembers that he was there.
Well, it did happen in the University of Edinburgh, not down in England where you are.
That's right.
But anyway, what you'll find is you get two types of responses. One is what I call the Richard Dawkins response, because I've debated him, you can see bits of it on YouTube, and when you bring up a solid fact, like, hang on, this fossil is not 300 million years old or 200, look how much it's changed, right? And his first level of response is, well, how dare you even demand public funds, you know, and have tax deductibility? And I think, what's that got to do with what we're talking about?
We're talking
You know,
science here.
We're talking science here, and you end up with a personal attack. That's the commonest sort of response. I mean, you people, how do you say this with peer-reviewed journals, and you're not, you know, and you think, come on, Richard, talk stuff, right? Talk facts. So that's the first level of response. But I'm not surprised they resort to that response, because one of the things that we bring out on the DVD you're in, Darwin on the Rocks, is how they got this ageing system in the first place. And it's due to a Scotsman who actually took up being English and graduated in law. His name is Charles Lyell.
Yeah.
And he sort of was Charles Darwin's mentor. He's a bigger problem than Darwin is, but Darwin was his disciple, and because of a door that Lyell opened for the vast amount of time, Darwin walked through, developed his theory of evolution. But then Lyell and Darwin tag-teamed, or team-tagged, whatever you say over here, right? And Lyell started to use Darwin's ideas to date the rocks. And a classic example is that, okay, you start in the Ordovician rocks, the ones you and I were filming in, right? And you find fossil snails. They're easy to recognise. They look like fossil snails, right? And so you'd think, hey, the evidence is snails have produced their own kind.
Complex science, this, isn't
It
it?
really is. Hard
Difficult
stuff,
to
right?
grasp.
Yes, I keep saying the only thing about common sense is it ain't all that common.
It's not, that's for sure.
And then what Lyell did was say, well, if you add up all the rock layers up to the top, there seems to be 12 variations in the snail group. So if we have the evolution of species, hey Charles, how long does it take to get one snail evolving to another species? And Darwin's answer was 20 million years. And so 12 times 20 is 240. So the Ordovician rocks, before radioactive dating, before any other thoughts like that, automatically became 240 million years old by fiat declaration. That's it. No evidence, right? And you never get taught this at university because it would make it look so stupid.
Yeah.
Because it is.
It is.
It actually
It's an
is.
easy
There's
thing to make it
no
look stupid.
way to get around it. So I'm not surprised the atheists will launch into a personal attack because there's no database. Once you get into their database, here's what you find. It's a logical construct that they never want you to find out what presuppositions it's built on. Because the chief presupposition is, again, Charles Lyell, my aim is to remove science from Moses.
We really do need to get into the presuppositions, where Lyell came up with these thoughts, and why we need to expose what really happened there.
Well, it's really that I want you, John, to be able to expand on the thing that we just sort of ran out of time with before the break, really, and I don't want our viewers to miss this point, that Lyell, who developed the ideas of long ages of millions of years, that, as John was telling us, they did not come from radiometric dating. This is long before radiometric dating. It was basically sort of ideas going backwards and forwards between Charles Lyell and Charles Darwin, developing this idea of millions of years and giving this sort of divine fiat on their part as to what age something should be. But it's very important that we know that there was a motivation behind what Lyell said. And you mentioned this before the break, but I really want you to emphasise it again for our viewers so they don't miss it. What was his motivation?
Okay, I'll actually go back a few years, if that's all right, to
Certainly.
give it a historic context. You ever heard of Theophilus?
I have.
Okay, in the 2nd century, Theophilus said the world was made about 5,700 years ago, plus or minus 200. Right, it's interesting that they actually had that concept, right? And of course, he was basing his edition on the Septuagint version, which was common amongst the Christian in those days. And then he went on to say, not the tens of thousands that Plato and the others have stated.
Tens of thousands.
Pagan, right? So here we have the pagans versus the Christians, revealed authority versus man's deductions. Now, the basis of the argument has not changed. By the time you get to the French in the 1700s, increasing atheism, increasing rationalism, so you get Comte de la Buffon, right? And Comte de la Buffon...
I can't say that.
Well, you got the wrong accent.
Okay.
G'day, y'all.
Yeah, that's right. How y'all doing?
And Comte de la Buffon basically said the Earth is a blob, and it cooled down from a blob of molten iron. So he took a ball of iron and he heated it up and let it cool down, and said if this little ball takes that many weeks to cool down, then this big ball takes at least 70,000 years. Now, his
That's where he came up with that
That's where he came up with that. Whatever's happening in the present has always happened. Now, even though he never publicly attacked the biblical position at all, the Bible position, as stated in Moses, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, is that once there wasn't a world, then there was.
Right.
The present is not the key to the past. That world was very good. Now it isn't. The present is not the key to the past. Once it didn't rain, now it does.
Now it does.
The present, you see that the difference in approach?
Yeah.
Okay, now, de Buffon was French. So if the French say it, the English reject it. You know that, right? But the Scots, if the English reject it, the Scots will grab it, right? Because we've been fighting them for a long time.
That's right.
And anyway, so in Edinburgh University, they start to promote this present is the key to the past concept. It's not got fancy words yet, but Charles Lyell grew up just outside of Edinburgh. He comes to England, writes a book in 1831. What's happening in society? Well, over there in France, where they'd run with the biblical catastrophic model, you know, God made the world good, then it's destroyed by Noah's flood, e.g. the present is not the key to the past.
Right.
Then they started to say, well, Cuvier, there's at least 4 major catastrophes based on the rocks. Extinct creatures, extinct creatures, extinct
They're
creatures.
looking at the rock
They're looking
layers
at the
and
rock layers
determining-
as their authority, right? And then his disciples said, no, there's 27 different layers under France, under Paris alone. And so by the time you get to the end of that cycle, there's so many catastrophes, it just looks plain stupid,
Still,
right?
yeah, still, yeah.
So Lyell takes advantage and says, get rid of catastrophism, replace it with, well, what became known as uniformitarianism. And basically use only what you can see in the present and extrapolate backwards. Now, that just looks like, okay, we're being scientists, we just look at the present. If it wasn't for the fact that after he died, his sister had collected his letters, and in one of those letters is, my aim is to free science from Moses.
Wow.
Now, if you're wondering why it's had such an impact on the church in England or the church in America, it was Jesus who said, if you don't believe Moses, John chapter 5, then you won't believe me. Now, you're looking at this truth that Jesus gave us being fulfilled, because you're looking at America where most of the Republicans, most of the Democrats no longer believe Moses, so don't be surprised they don't believe Jesus. The two go hand in hand, and Jesus said that's the way it works.
Wow.
Right? So that's sort of the motivation, the long-term consequence. These guys belong to a group that said the monarchy in England is based on the concept of Moses being right. God is the creator. He has the right to appoint kings, you know, the divine rule of kings. You want to get rid of the monarchy, you have to get rid of the creator.
Wow.
Right? And so you can see England's monarchy has just faded away, and they really don't know why. But the reality is the whole foundation of every structure in society that's organised actually comes based on the God who is the organiser.
Organizer, yeah.
Get rid of that organisation and no longer in God we trust.
That's right.
So the society, whether it's American democracy or British monarchy, has no basis for truth. It will collapse.
And that's exactly where we see ourselves today. I mean, that hits the nail on the head for why is America in the state that it's in? Why is society in the state that it's in? It's because we've rejected a foundation.
Yeah.
And when you reject that, you're left with chaos.
That's
You're left
exactly
with
right.
anything goes.
And it's really hard to share the gospel because the people you're talking to live on another planet. They think their brains got there by accident. So don't be surprised they can't think through the logical arguments, which, whether Christians know it or not, our presupposition is God is a God of order, my thoughts have to be ordered. And ordered thoughts from A to Z prove something. But a non-Christian, thoughts are whatever.
Yeah,
right? They don't have to be logical, they can even be illogical, right?
That's
What's
true.
the problem, right?
That's true.
And so you will find that if you want to share the gospel, you have to begin in the beginning. God made the world, He made it good, that's why sin is so bad. What's sin? Well, God has the right to tell us what's wrong, and He has the right to tell us what to repent of. He has the right to judge sin. And if He judges sin, you and me and everybody else, from President Obama downwards, are in trouble. But good news! This God came down as a man, and He chose to die on the cross in your place and mine. You can get off the hook. That's good news, isn't it?
It's marvellous news, and we know it should be preached. We just had a mini sermon there, and it's good stuff.
Where can they get more? I'm looking at, we carry some of your DVDs, of course, at creationstory.org. They can get them from your website.
To our office in Tennessee, which is on our creationresearch.net website.
And then if they have questions for you, of course, askjohnmackay.com. So, wow.
Well, we could do about 10 of these, couldn't we, Eric?
You're not kidding. I love it. This gets down to right where it matters with worldviews, with what's going to happen when we die. All of that comes right into this. Well, that is our show for today. I want to thank John for joining us. If you have questions, feel free to send them in to questions@creationtoday.org. You can also join us on Twitter @CreationToday and Facebook, facebook.com/CreationToday.
Well, tune in every episode, remember, to see if we've answered your question. And of course, these programs are being archived online at creationtoday.org. This has been a production of God Quest Ministries.
Thank you guys very much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Eric, for having me on the set.
No, it's been great having you down here for a couple months. This is cool.
And guys, check out creationtoday.org. Thanks so much, Eric.
My pleasure.